Did you know that Albert Einstein, one of the greatest minds in history, did not speak until he was almost 4 years old? His parents feared something was wrong, and his teachers thought he was slow. But this silent boy would one day unlock the secrets of the universe. Today, you will discover the incredible journey of Albert Einstein, from a misunderstood child to a scientific legend. His story will not only inspire you but also help you improve your English as you listen carefully. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you never miss an opportunity to learn through incredible stories. Now, sit back and let's begin. In a quiet town in Germany, on March 14, 1879, a baby boy was born. His parents, Hermann and Pauline Einstein, were ordinary people, unaware that their son would one day change the way humanity understood the universe. They named him Albert. From the beginning, Albert was different. While most children babbled their first words early, he remained silent. His parents worried as months passed without hearing him speak. When he finally did, it wasn't a simple word like mama or papa. Instead, he formed full sentences, as if he had been waiting until he could express himself completely. "The soup is too hot," he reportedly said one evening at the dinner table. His silence had not been a sign of slowness, but of deep thought. As Albert grew, his curiosity about the world became evident. He would spend hours staring at objects, lost in thought, trying to understand how they worked. When he was 5, his father gave him a small compass. The way the needle always pointed north fascinated him. No matter how much he shook it or turned it in different directions, the needle mysteriously returned to the same position. This invisible force guiding the compass made him realize that there were unseen rules governing the universe. It was a simple moment, but it sparked a lifelong quest to uncover the mysteries of nature. Despite his growing intelligence, school was a challenge. His teachers saw him as slow and unmotivated. The rigid education system focused on memorization and discipline, which did not suit his way of thinking. He disliked the repetitive lessons, preferring to learn through questions and deep thinking. One teacher told him he would never amount to anything. Another advised him to leave school, as he was wasting everyone's time. At home, things were different. His mother, Pauline, was passionate about music and insisted that Albert learn the violin. At first, he resisted, but over time, music became an important part of his life. The sound of the violin helped him think, and in later years, he would often play while working through complex scientific problems. His uncle Jacob, an engineer, also played a crucial role in shaping his mind. Unlike his school teachers, Jacob encouraged his curiosity, introducing him to algebra and physics. He showed Albert that numbers were not just dry equations but the language of the universe. With his uncle's guidance, young Albert began solving advanced problems far beyond his school curriculum. Though school frustrated him, he excelled in mathematics and science. He devoured books on physics and philosophy, questioning the very nature of reality. One day, while walking home, he wondered what it would be like to chase a beam of light. Could he ever catch up to it? Would the light appear frozen if he moved at the same speed? This simple question would later become the foundation of his greatest discovery. At the age of 15, Albert faced an unexpected change. His father's business struggles forced the family to move to Italy. His parents wanted him to stay in Germany and complete his education, but he was miserable. The strict school system felt suffocating, and he longed for a different kind of learning. One day, he made a bold decision. Without telling his parents, he left school and traveled to join them in Italy. His decision was risky. Without a diploma, his future was uncertain. But for Albert Einstein, formal education was not the path to knowledge. He believed that true learning came from curiosity, passion, and an endless desire to understand the universe. This was just the beginning. Albert arrived in Italy feeling a sense of freedom he had never experienced before. Away from the strict teachers and rigid school system, he spent his days exploring new ideas. He walked through the streets of Milan, observing the world with the same curiosity that had driven him since childhood. He read books on philosophy and science, questioning everything he had been taught. For the first time, he felt in control of his own education. His parents, however, were not pleased. They worried about his future, knowing that without a formal diploma, his opportunities would be limited. Albert understood their concerns, but he refused to return to the German school system. He had no interest in memorizing facts without understanding them. He wanted to think, to explore, to discover. His father insisted that he should follow a practical career, perhaps engineering, but Albert was not interested in building machines. He wanted to understand the invisible forces that govern the universe. Determined to continue his education in his own way, he set his sights on the Swiss Federal Polytechnic School in Zurich. Switzerland had a more open-minded approach to learning, and Albert believed it would be the perfect place for him. There was only one problem. He needed a high school diploma to be admitted. Without hesitation, he applied to a Swiss school to complete his studies. The transition was not easy. While he excelled in mathematics and physics, his grades in other subjects were not impressive. He found little interest in languages and history, preferring to spend his time solving complex problems rather than memorizing historical dates. His teachers noticed his intelligence but were frustrated by his unwillingness to follow the standard curriculum. He often ignored assignments that he found uninteresting and instead focused on reading advanced scientific texts. Despite these challenges, Albert was determined to succeed. He developed a deep admiration for the works of Isaac Newton, James Clerk Maxwell, and Ernst Mach, spending countless hours trying to understand their theories. While other students followed the standard lessons, he was already thinking about problems that even his teachers struggled to answer. After months of effort, he finally passed the entrance exam and was accepted into the Polytechnic School. It was a moment of triumph. He had defied expectations, rejected a system that had tried to limit him, and carved his own path. He was now ready to begin the next chapter of his life, one that would bring both struggle and discovery. Albert Einstein stepped into the Polytechnic School in Zurich with great expectations. He imagined it as a place where brilliant minds explored the mysteries of the universe. But reality was different. The classes were rigid, much like those in Germany, and many professors were uninterested in his unconventional way of thinking. He often skipped lectures, preferring to study on his own. Instead of taking notes in class, he spent hours reading advanced physics books in the library. Despite his lack of discipline in formal studies, his brilliance was undeniable. He could solve complex mathematical problems with ease, often surpassing his classmates. His professors, however, were unimpressed. They saw him as rebellious and lacking respect for traditional teaching methods. One professor even refused to recommend him for academic positions, believing he was too arrogant to succeed in the scientific community. Albert found comfort in a small circle of like-minded students who shared his passion for science. Among them was Mileva Maric, the only woman in his physics class. She was highly intelligent and determined to prove herself in a field dominated by men. Their shared love for physics and long discussions about the nature of the universe brought them closer. Over time, their friendship turned into romance, despite objections from Albert's family. His mother disapproved, believing that Mileva was not a suitable match for him. As Albert neared graduation, he faced a harsh reality. While his classmates secured teaching positions and research opportunities, he found himself without a job. His professors, unimpressed by his independent approach, did not offer him recommendations. He applied to several universities, hoping for a position as a lecturer or assistant, but rejection after rejection arrived. The scientific community did not yet recognize his genius. With no stable income, Albert struggled to support himself. He gave private lessons in mathematics and physics, but the pay was meager. Mileva also faced difficulties, failing one of her final exams, which meant she could not obtain her degree. Their financial situation grew worse, and tensions between them increased. Letters between them revealed their frustration and desperation. Albert dreamed of making groundbreaking discoveries, but instead, he was barely making enough to survive. At one point, he even considered giving up on academia. His father, seeing his struggles, wrote to him, urging him to take any job available rather than waiting for a breakthrough. But Albert refused to abandon his passion. He continued writing scientific papers, hoping that someone would notice his work. Just as things seemed hopeless, an opportunity arrived. Through a friend's recommendation, he secured a job at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. It was not the academic position he had dreamed of, but it provided financial stability. His role was to examine patent applications and determine if the inventions were original. The work was repetitive, but it allowed him free time to think. He often finished his tasks quickly so he could spend the rest of the day working on his own theories. Late at night, after returning home, he filled notebooks with calculations and ideas. His mind refused to rest. He was obsessed with questions that had troubled him since childhood. What would happen if someone traveled at the speed of light? Was time truly constant, or could it change depending on motion? No one around him was asking these questions, but Albert believed they held the key to something revolutionary. The years of struggle and rejection had not broken his spirit. Instead, they had sharpened his determination. He was about to enter the most important period of his life, a time that would forever change the world of physics. Albert Einstein sat at his desk in the Swiss Patent Office, surrounded by stacks of applications. His job was to analyze new inventions, but his mind was elsewhere. He had been thinking about light, time, and space for years, and the answers were beginning to take shape. In 1905, at the age of 26, he published 4 scientific papers that would change physics forever. The first paper explained the photoelectric effect, proving that light could behave as both a wave and a particle. This discovery would later earn him the Nobel Prize. The second paper mathematically confirmed the existence of atoms, something that had been debated for years. The third introduced the concept of Brownian motion, explaining how tiny particles move randomly in a liquid. Each of these papers was groundbreaking, but it was the fourth that would revolutionize the world. In his fourth paper, Einstein introduced the special theory of relativity. He challenged the long-accepted idea that time and space were absolute. He proposed that time moves differently depending on how fast an object is moving. If someone traveled close to the speed of light, time would slow down for them compared to someone standing still. It was a radical idea, one that defied common sense but was backed by precise mathematics. From this theory came one of the most famous equations in history, E equals mc squared. It revealed that energy and mass are interchangeable. A small amount of mass could be converted into an enormous amount of energy. This simple equation explained how the sun produces light and laid the foundation for nuclear energy. At first, few scientists understood the significance of his work. He was still an unknown physicist working at a patent office, not a respected professor at a prestigious university. But as experts analyzed his papers, they realized they were witnessing a revolution. The ideas he presented challenged everything they thought they knew about the universe. His miracle year, as it came to be known, was just the beginning. Word of his discoveries spread, and invitations from universities started arriving. Within a few years, he went from an obscure office worker to one of the most respected physicists in the world. He had spent years in isolation, struggling for recognition, and now the scientific community was paying attention. The world was changing, and Einstein's theories would play a crucial role in shaping the future. His journey from a rebellious student to a revolutionary scientist had reached its turning point. The universe was no longer what people had once believed, and Albert Einstein was the man who had rewritten its rules. Albert Einstein had spent years working in obscurity, but his time in the shadows was over. His groundbreaking papers had caught the attention of the scientific community, and universities now competed to have him as a professor. He left the Swiss patent office and entered academia, first in Switzerland, then in Germany. His name was no longer unknown. He had become one of the most talked about scientists in Europe. As his fame grew, so did his responsibilities. He traveled from city to city, delivering lectures to packed halls. Scholars and students alike listened in awe as he explained concepts that challenged the very foundation of physics. Not everyone accepted his ideas. Some scientists resisted change, unwilling to abandon long-held beliefs. But experiments continued to confirm his theories, and Einstein's reputation grew stronger with each passing year. In 1915, after a decade of work, he completed his general theory of relativity. Unlike his earlier theory, which focused on time and motion, this new theory redefined gravity itself. Isaac Newton had described gravity as a force pulling objects toward each other, but Einstein proposed something different. He argued that massive objects, like the sun, bend the fabric of space and time around them. Smaller objects, like Earth, move along these curves, creating the effect we call gravity. For years, this idea remained theoretical. Then, in 1919, an opportunity arose to test it. A British astronomer named Arthur Eddington led an expedition to observe a solar eclipse. If Einstein was right, the light from distant stars should bend as it passed near the sun. The results confirmed his predictions. Headlines around the world announced the news: Einstein's theory was correct. Overnight, he became an international celebrity. No longer was he just a respected scientist. He was now a public figure, admired by people who did not even understand his work. His face appeared on magazine covers, and journalists followed him everywhere. Some called him the successor to Newton. Others described him as the greatest mind of the century. In 1921, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics. Surprisingly, it was not for relativity, but for his work on the photoelectric effect. Some members of the Nobel Committee still hesitated to recognize his revolutionary ideas about space and time. But Einstein did not care. He was not driven by awards or fame. His mind was already moving toward new questions, new puzzles waiting to be solved. As his scientific career soared, his personal life faced challenges. His marriage to Mileva Maric had suffered under the weight of his growing fame and constant travel. They had grown apart, and in 1919, they divorced. That same year, he married Elsa, his cousin, who became his companion for the rest of his life. Despite the chaos of fame, Einstein remained the same curious thinker he had always been. He cared little for wealth or formalities, preferring simple clothes and long walks. He continued to question the nature of the universe, always searching for the next great discovery. But outside the world of science, a storm was brewing. Political tensions in Europe were rising, and Einstein's life was about to take a dramatic turn. Albert Einstein watched as the world around him changed. The 1920s had brought him fame and success, but the 1930s introduced something far more dangerous. In Germany, a new political movement was rising. The Nazi Party, led by Adolf Hitler, spread messages of nationalism, hatred, and fear. Einstein, a Jewish scientist and outspoken pacifist, became a target. As anti-Semitic policies grew stronger, life for Jewish citizens in Germany became increasingly difficult. Universities dismissed Jewish professors, scientific institutions rejected Jewish researchers, and public hostility toward them escalated. Einstein had spent years building his career in Germany, but he knew he could not stay. When he left for a lecture tour in the United States in 1933, he realized it would be too dangerous to return. Soon after, the Nazis raided his home and declared him an enemy of the state. He resigned from all academic positions in Germany and renounced his citizenship. Homeless in a world that had once celebrated him, he found refuge in the United States. Princeton University offered him a position at the Institute for Advanced Study, a new research center that welcomed the greatest minds of the time. He accepted, settling in New Jersey, where he would spend the rest of his life. As war loomed over Europe, Einstein spoke out against fascism and dictatorship. He had always been a pacifist, believing that war was a failure of humanity. But now, he saw an even greater danger. Hitler's Germany was growing stronger, and reports suggested that German scientists were working on a terrifying new weapon, the atomic bomb. In 1939, two physicists, Leo Szilard and Eugene Wigner, approached Einstein with a warning. They believed Germany was developing nuclear weapons and urged him to take action. Einstein, despite his lifelong opposition to war, agreed that the situation was too dangerous to ignore. He signed a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, alerting him to the possibility of a German atomic bomb. This letter led to the creation of the Manhattan Project, the secret U.S. program to develop nuclear weapons. As the war raged on, Einstein was not directly involved in the Manhattan Project. The U.S. government saw him as a security risk due to his political beliefs. He continued his research at Princeton, deeply troubled by the destruction unfolding in Europe. When the war finally ended in 1945, the world learned of the horrors of the Holocaust. Millions of Jewish lives, including those of many scientists, had been lost. Einstein mourned, knowing that his homeland had become unrecognizable. News of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945 shook him. His equation, E equals mc squared, had provided the foundation for nuclear energy, but he had never intended for it to be used as a weapon. He regretted signing the letter to Roosevelt, believing that his warning had set in motion a chain of events that led to unimaginable destruction. For the rest of his life, he became one of the most vocal advocates against nuclear weapons. He warned the world of their dangers, urging nations to seek peace instead of destruction. He used his fame to call for international cooperation, hoping that science would serve humanity rather than destroy it. His role in history had changed. He was no longer just a scientist. He had become a symbol of wisdom, a man whose voice carried the weight of experience. But his mind was still restless, still searching for answers to the mysteries of the universe. Even as the world saw him as a legend, he remained, at his core, the same curious boy who had once stared at a compass, wondering how the world worked. Albert Einstein had spent his life unraveling the mysteries of the universe, but as he grew older, his attention turned to the fate of humanity. He had seen the power of science used for both progress and destruction. The horrors of World War II and the creation of nuclear weapons had shaken him deeply. He dedicated his final years to advocating for peace, human rights, and scientific cooperation. In the late 1940s, he spoke out against the nuclear arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union. He feared that if countries continued developing atomic weapons, humanity would be on a path to self-destruction. He joined other scientists in calling for disarmament and the creation of a world government to prevent future wars. He often repeated that technological advances were meaningless unless guided by moral responsibility. Despite his activism, he never abandoned his search for scientific answers. He spent the last decades of his life working on what he called the unified field theory. He believed that all the forces of nature, gravity, electromagnetism, and the forces within atoms were connected by a single set of laws. He filled notebooks with equations, searching for a mathematical framework that could unite everything. Many younger physicists had turned their attention to quantum mechanics, a field Einstein had helped pioneer but never fully accepted. He disagreed with its randomness, famously stating that God does not play dice with the universe. Outside of science, he remained a beloved public figure. Letters poured into his home from admirers, students, and world leaders seeking his advice. He responded with warmth and humor, always preferring simple language over complicated explanations. His wild white hair and kind smile made him instantly recognizable. People saw him not only as a genius but as a wise grandfather figure. He continued teaching and giving lectures, but his health began to decline. In 1955, he suffered an abdominal aneurysm. Doctors advised surgery, but he refused, believing that life should end naturally. He spent his last days at Princeton Hospital, still thinking about the mysteries of the universe. On April 18, 1955, Albert Einstein passed away at the age of 76. His brain was preserved for scientific study, as researchers hoped to understand what made his mind so extraordinary. His body was cremated in a simple ceremony, as he had requested. He did not want a grand monument or a place of worship in his name. He believed that his true legacy was not in stone or statues but in the knowledge he had given to the world. His theories transformed physics, shaping the modern understanding of space, time, and energy. His warnings about war and nuclear weapons continue to influence global discussions on peace. His name became a symbol of intelligence, and his story serves as a reminder that true genius comes not just from knowledge but from an endless curiosity about the world. Albert Einstein's life was proof that one person, armed with questions and determination, can change the course of history. Though he is gone, his ideas remain alive in every equation, every scientific breakthrough, and every child who dares to ask, "What if?" Albert Einstein's journey was never about fame, fortune, or recognition. He was not interested in power or status. What drove him from childhood until his final days was curiosity. He wanted to understand the universe, to see beyond what was known, and to ask questions that others had not yet imagined. His ability to think differently, to challenge existing ideas, and to remain persistent in the face of failure made him one of the greatest minds in history. His life was filled with obstacles. He struggled in school, faced rejection from universities, and spent years in relative obscurity before the world recognized his genius. Many would have given up, but he never stopped questioning. He believed that knowledge was not about memorizing facts but about understanding the fundamental principles that govern reality. His theories revolutionized science, not because he followed the rules, but because he was willing to break them. Beyond science, his wisdom extended into life itself. He valued imagination over rigid thinking and often reminded people that creativity was just as important as knowledge. He believed in kindness, humility, and the responsibility that came with intelligence. He encouraged young minds to think freely, to never accept limitations, and to embrace curiosity as the most powerful tool for discovery. His influence remains everywhere. Modern technology, from GPS systems to nuclear energy, is built on the foundations of his work. His theories continue to shape physics, inspiring new generations of scientists to explore the unknown. His words, filled with insight and humor, are still quoted today, reminding people to look beyond what is visible and seek deeper understanding. Albert Einstein once said that a life worth living is a life spent in service of others. His contributions to science, humanity, and peace have left an imprint that will never fade. His story is proof that genius is not about being the smartest person in the room, but about being the most curious. If this story inspired you, like this video and comment on your favorite part of Einstein's journey. Do not forget to subscribe to this channel for more incredible stories that will not only teach you history but also improve your English. Do you want to improve your English 20x faster? Whether it is grammar, conversation, or fluency, we have the perfect material for you. Click the link in the description or the first pinned comment and take your English to the next level.